Welcome to Crypto Sapiens, a show that hosts lively discussions with innovative Web3 builders to help you learn about decentralized money systems, including Ethereum, Bitcoin, and DeFi. The podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it is not financial advice. Crypto Sapiens is presented in partnership with Bankless DAO, a movement for pioneers seeking freedom from the limitations of the traditional financial system. Bankless DAO will help the world go bankless by creating user-friendly on-ramps for people to discover decentralized financial technologies through education, media, and culture. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Sapiens. And today we are talking with Fattybagz and Shreddy, core members of Olympus DAO. We talk about Olympus DAO and decentralized reserve currencies. We also dive deep into a discussion about what is a DAO, vetting contributors, and finding alignment in a DAO. I will warn you, there's a lot of excitement and passion in this episode, so there is some cursing. Without further ado, let's get started.
Humpty, thank you, man. I really appreciate you. That was super warm. Definitely want to say that we are grateful and humbled to be up here and chopping it up with you. This check was a lot of fun. let's put it that way. When you can have fun with the sound check, you know everything else is going to turn out wonderful. So I'm a bit long-winded of an individual at times, so I will try to be cognizant of that. But I'll give you a little background kind of as to who I am and the interesting upbringing that I had and kind of what led me here, if that works for you.
Wonderful.
All right. So, I'd say back in 2014, I think it was 2014. It's been so long now. I got into crypto with several of my buddies, and it was Bitcoin at the time. And we were mining. I think it was around that time we started mining. And you'd walk into my buddy Shane's apartment, and the damn thing was like 300 degrees. We had milk crates set up with GPUs, and they're like, dude, you got it, Fatty. You got to get into this crypto shit. And I'm going, crypto? Like, what the hell is this? It's like a virtual coin. Okay, I guess I'll put a little bit of cash into it, or we can try to do this. So we got into it. We started stacking some BTC, and then I think it was one of the first rugs. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there's some people out there like, nope, I got rugged before this. But Mt. Gox screwed us, and we lost everything. So after that point in time, we kind of I took a breather. I was like, I'm not going to mess with this shit anymore. We put a ton of time into it. And now it's all gone. There's no real explanation of what's happening. So I took a break. That led me into commercial cannabis consultation for large facilities all up and down the West Coast. So that was kind of like my first passion was cannabis, was working with the plant and the medicine for the people. So I did a lot of consultation for multi-million-dollar facilities throughout the entire West Coast to help these guys get up and off the ground without failing. It's a very hard, farming's hard any way you look at it. So for me, it was like, okay, how do we help these guys not fail? So I got into that for a long time and, still consult on and off. And just kind of dealt with life and built a couple companies, had a couple companies fail, had a couple companies succeed. But I never got off the horse. That's the one thing that I'd love to share with the entire crypto world is like, no matter how many times you fail, like you got to get back up on the horse. You're only as big a failure. When you give up is when you truly fail is what I'm trying to get at. So don't give up. So, let's fast forward a little bit to last year, around a year ago, I want to say it was. I had a buddy in Canada that was like, oh, you got to check out Ohm. It's Olympus is this crazy thing going on. There's a super high APY at the time. Put this in, you can make some bucks. So to me, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's see. I guess I can get back into crypto. My buddy's making money. Let's do it. So, I hop into Olympus, and at the time, the main channel was it was OT, which is off topic. And some of you guys might know it here, and I'm sure some of the listeners will know too. OT was an infamous shit show of just like super brilliant people and but also super degenerate content. It felt like, I don't even know how to put it. It was just an absolute shit show, but it was amazing. And you felt like you were at home. So with within OT, I started to, communicate. And obviously I was a little shy. I was like, okay, we're in this thing and like people are super big brained. I don't have a super huge grasp on DeFi as a whole at this point in time. So, where do I fit in? And like, how do I not appear to be just like this random newbie and whatnot? And I wouldn't say I was a super noob at the time, but I definitely didn't have a grasp of what was going on like some of these other guys, especially the people who are creating the protocols and doing all of that. So what I did have was a lifetime of marketing experience, a good attitude and a couple different talents that I could bring to the table that maybe would highlight me within this protocol and maybe find my way, into it. So I wrote up a rather large document, a marketing proposal early on before the DAO was constructed. This is right after the ICO, I believe. So I missed out by like a month or two on that. So this was before the DAO's creation as well. So I wrote out this document. Everybody, took a look at it and go, wow, this kind of aligns with what we're thinking. And a lot of it was based around, certain demographics and personas, how we would market it to people who are new to the space, and then how we do that as well to the veterans. So it was just a long, lengthy document that really broke down psychology and these other aspects as well. It was well received, and they said, "Hey, dude, would you like to hop in here and potentially lead the marketing team? Like, I think we could use your abilities." I said, "Sure, shit, this is a perfect, door in." Fast forward 6 months, and we've gone from millions to billions at one point in time, and a lot of the aspects that I highlighted in the original marketing proposal came true, and they were spot on, which was solid. That felt good to be validated in that regard, because it's a new space. You don't really know how people are going to react. You also don't really know the regulations that surround this space as well. You have to be careful. There's certain things that you can and cannot do in traditional marketing. You might be able to do certain things, and then in DeFi, you have to be careful. There's all these little subtle nuances, and some not so subtle, that you have to abide by. So really, to not go super, too deep into the long-windedness, had a really interesting childhood that always kept me glued into computers and technology. That really translated well into now where we're at with Olympus. And, it's been an exciting journey. There's been a lot of really wonderful highs and really horrible lows. But the one thing that I tell everybody is that it's super important to remember that everyone in this space, regardless of what project they've worked for, we're all human. And like, we're all trying to figure this out together. And so for me, I always preach the ethos and the vibe of take care of your fellow human. We're on this big marble, this big blue marble together. And it's a very small marble in the vast expansion of space. And we got to look out for each other. Some people are going to disagree that some alignments are not going to work out. But at the end of the day, it's like we're here to build each other up. So hopefully that wasn't super, super long-winded. It's a little bit about me. But thanks, Humpty, for allowing me to intro out like that.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And thank you so much for, adding so much context to the story. I mean, I'll start, all right, not start, but I'll add that on Crypto Sapiens, the aim is to tell the story from the lens of the person who is building in this space. So hopefully the people that are listening they find some alignment through that story, and they go, oh, I identify with that story. That's me too. And that is hopefully how we start to make this space a little less scary, a little more familiar, yes, and onboarding more people through these stories. So I really appreciate the context. I'm never going to be one to tell you you're adding too much flavor to that story. So that was
love it.
Incredible.
Thank you, Humpty, man.
So the bar has been set incredibly high. Shreddy, give us an introduction to who you are.
I just got to give it up to Fatty for just being just an all around one of my favorite humans that I've met. Not that you meet very many animals in crypto, but
you meet a few, right?
yeah. But one of my favorite people that I've worked with in the DAO, and just an all around stand up guy. And I find a lot of parallel. Maybe not so much in the context, but maybe in the ethos of what that's a theme for today, huh? Ethos. Mm-hmm. Of what Fatty has come from and believes. And so I came into the space probably around 2015, back when Bitcoin was used primarily as a means for acquiring things on the internet. Probably not, not what you're thinking of. At the time, it was, I think it was for like fake IDs or something like that for some of my younger friends. And, you look back, I think everybody has that Bitcoin pizza story, right? Like you have a bunch of things that are worth so much more today, but at the time you were like, oh, well, I'll use it on this because I don't know if it's going to be around for that much longer. So that was like my first foray into crypto. I then after that, I had held some Ethereum for a while. Nothing that would that would make me a whale at this point, but it was just something that I always held and kept and believed in from a young age. And I think Fatty touched on it a little bit. Like he said that it all kind of starts from like, internet exposure when you're young. I think coming from a world of video games and, online interactions, it just made sense. So I was like, this has got to be part of the future. I worked in the music industry and the entertainment industry for a while at a college, and that was great. And it's still my passion. I'm a musician. I've been a musician for forever, since I was a little kid, and that's kind of like part of my core being. But kind of same way as Fatty, one of my friends who actually worked in the DAO in the policy team introduced me and was like, man, we used to be into Ethereum and Bitcoin, but this Olympus stuff is something special. So I got involved. I actually just started by pitching myself to Agora, which is one of our like projects, which handles a lot of our media. And so I started doing a little bit of work for them. We're doing these sound bank events, which are a mix between interview and music, which was right up my alley. But that kind of snowballed into me accepting more and more responsibility, and Fattybagz kind of taking me under his wing in marketing. And then I just started to branch out to different parts of the DAO and was able to help out wherever needed. And, now I take care of a lot of the policy marketing and the marketing about reserves and everything. I draw a lot of parallels actually to artists in the music industry and DeFi, I guess, marketing. They're actually like way more similar than you would think. So the translation made a lot of sense for me and works really well. I won't do as good a job as Fatty on the bringing it all home. But yeah, I mean, Web3 and crypto and Olympus especially has just been like a second family to me. So I'm super grateful.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, sorry, Fattybagz, you wanted to add something?
Oh, no. And I just wanted to say that Shreddy's being humble. The guy's got a massive brain. And that's like, I wanted to preface the fact that he's up here with me too, because he does handle so much of the policy and helps shape that whole realm as well. So he really big brained and super grateful to have you up here with me, Shred.
So, the one thing that I'm getting so far, and I think I mentioned this before we started recording, was if Olympus DAO is half as amazing as the energy that you two bring to the discussion and to any conversation that we've had in the past, it's a pretty damn cool project, right? So and Shreddy just mentioned now that it is like a second family. So let's go and explore Olympus DAO a little bit, maybe without necessarily getting too deep into the technology of it, but really kind of its intent.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing. I think we'll tag team it is like the best way to put it, because there's points that both of us can pull from. I think I want to touch on, if you don't mind, Humpty, I'd love to touch on why it feels like family and kind of and because I was an early member, I got to really see the DAO. I helped build the DAO with the team, right? So in this industry, shit moves at 1 trillion miles an hour. Yesterday feels like a week or a month. And to be able to see that growth and to build that out with a team and to hit speed bumps and to run into all of these minor issues or major issues and then be able to solve those, I thought that was really fascinating. So yes, let's address some of what you just said, Humpty, and then I'm going to pass them over to Shreddy about policy and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days, the goal, and still the goal till this day, is the DeFi. It's the reserve currency of DeFi, and that's something that's never changed. The beauty of the DAO itself, when it came to life, is that we saw the need to fill so many big pairs of shoes, and the realization that the core or the individuals at the helm at the time could not fill all of those shoes, could not possibly do it. That is where this growth and development of the DAO, came into the picture. It was early on, I believe, Zeus and a couple of the other guys said, "Hey, what do you guys think about a DAO? What do you think that we need to do to take this to the next level? Because there's a lot of brilliant minds here, and we need to figure that out." So I think everyone was on board right off the rip. We were going, throw it together. Let's figure out how we can build this thing out. How can we come up with ideas and innovations that are going to help shape or change the DeFi and crypto, space as a whole. So that was kind of the thought behind the DAO in the beginning. Now, the creation of the DAO, and this is something I love. I really want to write a freaking book about it. I'm not going to lie. Creating a DAO is not only psychologically taxing and takes a lot to understand and to set up in a way that's efficient, but it's also a lot of freaking fun. Mm-hmm. So there's a side to it that you have to figure out a lot of these things and get them set up and in place, and you have to work through the speed bumps, like I said. But at the same time, you're building with like this freaking group of people on the forefront of something so innovative and exciting that it's completely natural to become a family. So touching on the family point, Humpty, mm-hmm. that you had made, it's like, how do we all not know each other, but yet we still love each other in one way, shape, or form? Mm-hmm. And I think that with the creation of the DAO, that helped forge those relationships. So what we saw is, okay, so we need operational, we have operational needs that need to be taken care of. We have marketing needs that need to be taken care of. So in my case, I spearheaded the marketing side of that. And from there, I was able to bring in other individuals who saw Ohm and were bag holders themselves or investors in general. And when these people come in, what you're doing is you're looking for the unicorns, right? There's 1 trillion people who want to be part of DeFi, and I'd say there's a handful of those people. I'd give them more than a handful. The filter into DeFi is rather thick. Like, to get here, everyone in this room, you have to be intelligent. So you guys are all very smart individuals. Now, whether that translates into working with a group of other individuals or not, I can't say. That's the unicorn aspect of vetting people when they join a DAO. Mm-hmm. So as these people start to come in, you start to identify these unicorns and you say, hey, I see that you have a strength. And as the team lead here, I would love to have you handle this part of or this aspect of whatever we're doing. And by having them do that, you give them a little bit of room to work and wiggle. And as they progress, it's a proof of work in that sense, or, even a proof of trust, because you're saying, hey, look, here's a task, and here's some tasks that you need to execute on. If you execute on them well, or you go above and beyond, then you're obviously kicking ass and you want to be here. So those individuals like Shreddy and like so many more of the guys that have come before Shreddy, they put in the work, and they came in, they busted their ass, and they were driven because they love the idea, they love the innovation, they love being on the forefront of DeFi. So identifying those characters and then befriending them, nurturing them, taking care of them, incubating talent is huge. And as you do that, you start to forge these or reinforce these relationships with people within the DAO. And then before you know it, you're 6 months down the road and you're surrounded by a family of individuals, mm-hmm. which is mind-boggling, because in the beginning, maybe I didn't know the core very well, but after 3-4 months, I start to understand where they're coming from, why they think this way, and we interact all the time. We become friends. So I know that was kind of bouncing around from a lot of different stuff, so I totally apologize for that, Humpty.
No, not at all. I take notes, and I'm checking off
Awesome.
what I want to come back to. So don't worry about that.
I love it. Perfect. I love it. And I really wanted to touch on that family aspect because, like, again, I've worked in corporate America personally, between you and everybody else listening. I've done the corporate drag. I've had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot in that realm. And there are certain aspects that have been tried and true through corporations that make sense, and some of that has been imported, if you will, into the DeFi space, into DAOs. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. But when you get into a DAO and you start working, it's a very unique experience, and it takes a really creative mind to make it work, because it can become herding cats overnight very easily, or it can be a fine, well-defined surgical process. And that's something that we were striving and still are perfecting till this day with Olympus, is streamlining how DAOs operate and how you should interface with people that are contributing to the DAO, and how do you take care of those people and make them actually part of the family, not feel like family, but part of the family. So long-winded. Again, apologize, but Shred, is there anything you want to add, or Humpty, you want to follow up with some questions there that I can toss to Shred that maybe I missed?
No. I'd love to hear from Shreddy in terms of the policy side, because I think you've done a good job at kind of framing the story and kind of the way that you engage the community, and kind of the process of not just how you build the DAO, but also the intentionality behind that process. So yeah, in terms of policy, I'd be curious, how that informs the way that the community has been built out, and the protocol as well.
Yeah, definitely. My main thing that I think is misunderstood about Olympus is, and I do a lot of marketing, messaging, and branding for the DAO. Something that I hear a lot is that people think, project, especially in the market we're in now, and maybe we can touch upon that later, but they're like, there's this DAO with this huge treasury. How do they support me? Well, every decision that we make, because we are trying to become as decentralized and autonomous as possible through, like, the definition of DAO, has to do with bettering the community in some way, whether that be in like short-term, medium-term, or long-term. So every, when we say, for example, like, we took in, let's say for example, like last month we did 19 million in bond sales. Well, people will ask, what does that 19 million in bond sales do for me? Why would you enact that, right? Like, what, and when that revenue comes in, how do I see it? And the way that we see it is that money, sorry, I'm not supposed to call it money, that software investment is backing the intrinsic value of each token that you hold. And not a good example, because right now our website is whacked and it says that every Ohm token is worth like $31 billion. I don't know, something with the front end went haywire last night. But if you have this, if we're able to make revenue, the Treasury, people think the Treasury just goes to line our pockets. That's not true. Like, every month when we pay contributors, we actually pay by minting new Ohm. We don't pay by just taking that Treasury money that we make and paying it out. So I think when my main point is, like, when we make policy decisions, when we make, marketing messages or anything, it's community first and only for the benefit of the community. Because we are all community members and holders ourselves. Like, we're down in the trenches. I'm in Off Topic every day, checking up on people, and and in all the other channels. So that's really where we come from.
Thank you. So, actually, let's pretend that I don't know much about Olympus DAO, Ohm. You mentioned having a pretty diverse treasury. Can you explain that briefly in terms of how that works, and how you're onboarding new projects, and the intention behind the diversification of that treasury?
Absolutely. So, first off, the Treasury is there to back the protocol, right? Like Ohm's original message was one DAI backs one Ohm. Now we've kind of gone into another realm of that where we have a risk-free value that's quite a bit higher than $1. Right now it's about $20 risk-free value. So you could always think that you could think of it like it's hard coded to have $1, but really it's soft coded. Like we would make an exchange for the Treasury for a risk-free value, and everybody would have enough, right? The way that you want to think about the Treasury is it is a way that we can generate revenue to provide yield, but also that grows Ohm as in circulation, right? Because the point of a currency, as of a reserve currency, is to have enough circulating to be able to be used as money. And that's something that's really difficult to solve when you're just starting out. But, I would just always say that, when you think about just you can draw a corollary to the United States government, right? So the Fed has in circulation, I don't know, multiple trillions of dollars of bills, whatever it is, hundreds of billions, 500s of billions, something like that. For Ohm to be a currency, we need to increase our circulation to increase our use as money. And then we have to have a big treasury to be able to do that, because we're backing every Ohm that we create with at least hard-coded $1. So bigger treasury means better circulation, means more of a reserve currency.
Why DAOs? Because at least from my perspective, it seems like there is a big opportunity, and there has been a lot of adoption through DAOs, DAO tokens in the Olympus DAO Treasury. Is that accurate? And I guess the follow-up question would be, why was there a focus on providing that service, if you will, to DAOs?
I guess I'll take that in two parts. And the first part is greater utility. So we can't just say that we're a reserve currency and then become one. What we realized quite a ways through the struggle up the mountain was that we were going to have to create an economy. And the only way we were going to be able to do that was to partner with DAOs to have them hold our token in their treasury, and in turn we would hold their tokens in ours. And so that's why when you look at the breakdown of the Olympus Treasury, you'll see Klima in there, you'll see Redacted in there, you'll see a bunch of our other partners, a lot of DAI, so makers in there. And then that would be part of the utility, and then we can get into further later, maybe like specifically what those other protocols can help us do in our economy. But then I would also say, that there is a lot to be said for. I actually want to expand. I want to backtrack and go back to. I want to finish the point that I was just talking about. So with the utility, there's also a lot of questions around like why would a reserve currency need an incubator program or a grants program, right? And I think that's another question that comes up a lot. And again, it comes back to the same idea that through building out an economy, we can further increase the utility of Ohm. And like one of the greatest examples, I think, right now in my eyes is this project called Mover. I don't know if you've heard of it yet, but essentially what it is it is a debit card that zaps your tokens and then transfers that onto this Mover card that you can use at the grocery store. You could right now, you can't do it in the US, but in other countries, you could load up a debit card with Ohm, bring that to the grocery store and buy an apple with it. That in and of itself is like is moving us so much more forward, than where we were a while ago.
Right.
Now on the case of DAO and why DAO, and maybe like why DAO for Olympus, right? Because you could probably do this with another entity. Long term, I would say that the goal of Olympus is to be able to just switch on a series of smart contracts that are really well written, very secure, very efficient, and just have them basically run the protocol with very few hands that touch the contracts, right? And maybe there's other soft things we need, marketing, partnerships, etc. Yes, but in terms of policy and that sort of thing, I think it would be, in our best interest in the future to fulfill being like fully autonomous, and that's why I think like DAO is the way that we've chosen for our model.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point in terms of building a DAO, and I think it was either you or Fattybagz who was alluding to that earlier, in terms of how you build that community around a project and really kind of trying to drive some intentionality to that as well, so that you're, building along the with the support of the community, but also, I guess, being also able to have some sort of temperature check into how the community is responding to something. What are some of the needs and maybe emerging trends within the space that require further exploration that I think a project, if they are limited in resources themselves, may not be able to do for themselves. But also from that more global perspective of that community, I think that those are many reasons why DAOs, in my opinion, work. And just, I think maybe also that is maybe one of the reasons in terms of why Olympus chose to DAOify, if you will.
You really nailed it, Humpty, as far as, what you just said too. I think there's so much, there's so much to be said about the inclusion of the community and building within, around, and just in conjecture with the community, like having that as part of what you're doing is really a magical thing that you can't really say that is done anywhere else outside of DAOs, really. I mean, sure, somebody's probably going to listen to this recording and be like, oh, that is wrong. But really, the experience itself is incredible to serve the community. I mean, that's the goal of everybody in the DAO. At the end of the day, is like, we are here to serve the community. Period. Yeah. We work for the community. That's a really magical thing. And then for the community to have a pulse on what's going on at their fingertips, and mostly sometimes it's in weekly cadences in the form of community calls or that kind of communication. That's a really powerful thing too. So I just wanted to highlight those aspects and agree with you 100%. I think it's a very unique experience that we're all getting to take part of.
One of the things that I personally love about DAOs is the diversity of them. I think that there are so many different use cases, many of which we certainly have yet to explore. What are some of those things that you have seen within your own DAO that you would think are unique, or maybe at least within the space that you operate are unique? And how have you seen, at least from the very beginning when the DAO first was established through today, having it evolve?
I can take this one. Yeah, no, so to kind of answer to kind of speak to your question, from the beginning, it's bare bones. You start a DAO, you find the shoes that need filling and you fill those shoes. Whether in our case, we kind of came up with this system where the strategos are the quote unquote project leads or the directors of their department, quote unquote. Please don't shoot me for using these terms. But yeah, so we wanted to kind of pull away from the corporate mouse wheel, and we thought about, okay, like, what's a way that we can brand this and make it unique to ourselves? So strategos are kind of these leads that make, they help direct the teams. So that was our step, was getting these people in a position. And then we had to figure out, okay, how do we set this up from an operational standpoint that makes sense, is fluid, and then also surgical in execution, which is I mean, you're basically building a fucking company from the ground up, and then you're doing it all anonymously. And then on top of that, you're trying to figure out the subtle nuances that need to change within that company to make sure it continues to work fluidly. So in the beginning, bare bones, we figured out what we need, and we got those people set up and in position to rock and roll. On top of that, we then started to see, okay, so there's quite a bit of interest that's coming in around Olympus. Now, when you think of interest, you think of people that want to actually engage, join in, be part of, and contribute. Now, not everyone, like I said before, is a valuable contributor. No offense to those that have fallen. But at the same time, there has to be a vetting or a gating, just like any company or any kind of organization or autonomous organization in this case, where you actually have to see, okay, are these guys going to bring value to the actual the product that we're trying to put out here, or in our case, becoming the reserve currency of DeFi. So. When you think about it like that, you go, okay, how do we vet these people? Like, how do we, like, these people are all anonymous shit. I could be talking to a freaking Microsoft CEO for all I know. And in a lot of cases, this is just a heads up to people in this space. A lot of cases, you are speaking to professionals in their field, leaders, a lot of the times, because the big brains are here, and it's innovative, and it's something that's new. And for anybody that's leading their realm, this is exciting. Shit gets mundane when you're the best of the best at things. I'm not saying I am by any means, but there's a lot of people that are listening to this that are top tier, and it's fun to find the next big thing. So I digress. When you get to vetting people, you have to be very careful how you handle things. People are not worker bees in this space. You do not treat people in DeFi as worker bees. They are intelligent individuals that you align with and you work alongside of. You never are this supreme leader, totalitarian bullshit. It's none of that. It's, we are equals. We are in this space. You bring genius to this space that maybe I do not, and I appreciate that, and I want to collaborate with that. So that was in the beginning, one of the difficult things was figuring out, how do we vet individuals coming in? You must treat them with respect. And then also, how do they prove that they're valuable? So that kind of leads into the amount of time they've spent and the proof of work, quote unquote, that they've put in by actually donating time. A lot of these guys in the beginning of the DAO, Humpty, and this kind of speaks to the early creation, I came in not expecting shit, bro. I came into the DAO and I was just freaking excited. I was like, let's fucking work, dude. Let's do this. So I'm grinding and I'm working my ass off to the point of where my girlfriend at the time was like, you haven't come out of that room in like a fucking week except to sleep. And I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. I'm just trying to do something big here. Just bear with me. It'll be all good. And sure enough, it was. But with that being said, I started with, I didn't want anything. I wasn't expecting anything. And I'd say 99% of people that join these DAOs, at least in the early days of Olympus, it would join without the expectation of getting paid. So then you're looking at someone for what are they actually contributing? How much time are they dedicating and donating? And that's an identifier where you go, oh, that dude means it. He's here on his own accord, busting his ass, and he fucking responds to every message that I send him. This dude's a keeper. He's a unicorn. All right. So that speaks to vetting. Definitely. And let me know, Humpty, if I'm going too long too. Feel free to hop in here and be like, yo, Fatty, I got another question, please. It's like not a big deal. Cool. So yeah, that goes to like kind of the unique intricacies of vetting. And that was something that I definitely had to learn as we evolved. And you never judge a book by its cover. Everyone should know that. Like, some people are not very well spoken and some people are introverts. And there's a lot of us out there that are we're different, but that doesn't make us less brilliant. So when approached by individuals in the DAO, I had to realize, okay, everyone is equal. Let's see how that goes. So we figured out vetting in a sense that way. I worked out processes in marketing on how to build these guys up and turn the teams into power teams where it's like, let's get people to spread their wings and spread their genius, because the real value is in the contributors of the DAO, not the DAO itself, right? The DAO is a framework for people to work with together. The real value is the people that you bring into the DAO and how you support those people and build them up. So that was one aspect, Humpty, that of early adoption, how we had to figure out how to work it. The other aspect is, how do you communicate and increase optics, cross departmental optics, if you will, and how do you keep that communication from being muddied and remove the white noise or static? And that was another thing that was a major hurdle, and it still is in a lot of DAOs, is how do you keep communication clear and concise so that people aren't getting their fucking wires crossed, right? So that was something that we had to learn and adopt. And that came in different forms, whether it was regular cadences and stand-up meetings in the morning. I know some of these people listening are like, ugh, stand up. Ugh, like, this is DeFi, bro. There are certain things that work. And believe me, in the beginning, I was like, fuck a stand-up, bro. I don't want to be doing stand-ups. It was a suggestion brought on by one of my buddies, J-Man. He's like, man, in my meet space, we're doing stand-ups. Let's try to rock it out in DeFi. It's not something people are doing. So, we're still doing stand-ups till this day, just to give you guys an idea. And the reason is because it allows for the teams to really mesh and to stay on the same page, and it builds camaraderie, which speaks to the next point, is like, DAOs are nothing unless you guys are working together and you're really looking out for one another. And also the main intention being to take care of your community. So those were just a couple key points, Humpty. I don't want to go too crazy, but those were some of the things that I saw as the DAO evolved. And of course, there's a trillion other things and innovations that can come from these DAOs, which I'm clueless as to what's going to be the next big thing, but it's exciting nonetheless.
Well, I wanted to touch on something that you alluded to, during that description of the early days of Olympus DAO and how it's continued to adapt and grow with its community, and that is, I think, many times in this space, because we have a very hacker mentality. It's like build first, right? And then, what's the other one? You build the parachute on the way down after you've jumped off the plane, right? Like, there's that mentality of like building, but sometimes I think we forget that if we want to be intentional and we want to make sure that we are capturing the imagination and adding purpose to individuals' lives and allowing them to create value in this space in meaningful ways, we need to be thoughtful about how we develop an organization. And so sometimes what I see is projects spin up and then they build out narratives and then they go, great, let's go. And it's like, well, hang on. Who's creating this project? What are their core beliefs? Because whether you choose to agree with that or not, the core values of the people that are starting a project are going to influence that project down the line. Beyond that, let's make sure that we are purposeful in terms of setting our direction. Like, who are we? Not just the individuals that are part of this project in the very beginning, but also, what does this project stand for? What are we trying to build? Because if you are thoughtful in that way, people can clearly say, hey, I'm raising my hand because that is representative of who I am. That aligns to who I am in real life. And I want to be a part of that, and I want to create value in that space. But if we are not mindful of that early, then we risk inviting everyone. And I think, Fattybagz, you said something that I am going to echo here. You said not everyone is a valuable contributor. And I agree with that, because we can't assume that if we are here to serve everyone, that we're going to serve anyone, right? So we need to be thoughtful about who we onboard, who we are, so people that identify with that can then add value and be a valuable contributor. But I think that if we are thoughtful in that genesis point, in terms of the point of creation of these DAOs, we can be create a more meaningful and experience for people, and then create a family around us, to your point much earlier in this call.
Yeah, you nailed it, Humpty. Like, honestly, man, that was spot on. If you start, this is something I've echoed throughout the halls of Olympus for a long time, and I will continue to echo until I am buried in the ground very deep, or burned, however you guys want to look at it. It got a little dark there, I apologize. But with that, if you don't start with a solid foundation, you have nothing at the end of the day.
Right.
And that speaks to your point, Humpty, is that the foundation is built via the core values of the individuals who help construct the building. Right. So that's a huge point. And I think you nailed it perfectly. You have to make sure that within that ethos, everyone's aligned, or at least very similarly aligned. It's very hard to get 10 people in a room and have them all agree on everything. But, that's just life. We're apes. We're very once removed from the apes. So that's okay. We understand that. But it's how do those individuals interface with one another and solve those differences? That's the other magic. So great foundation, solid individuals with aligned perspective, viewpoints, and innovative thinking. And then from there, you have a safe platform to begin to try to change the spaces.
Yeah.
So yeah, you nailed it, bro.
Thank you. Well, let's see. So in terms of the framing of the discussion that we've had so far, and I guess my next question would be, what is the direction that Olympus DAO sees in its future, both in terms of how the product will continue to evolve, and how will that also continue to adapt and grow in its community initiatives?
Where Olympus would like to be is, I think it's pretty easy. It's just one word. It's everywhere. And, I'm saying that facetiously, but I really do mean it. Like, Olympus wants to be basically used as currency in every DEX. We'd love to be on CEXs. We want to be used as Treasury holdings, for people. We want people to be able to take loans out with it. They already can, but in a very safe and reliable way. I think that the future of Olympus, people need to realize, is not a hedge fund. It's not a managed treasury. It's a reserve currency that is for all. And kind of like, and something, Humpty, that you said before, I wanted to echo, was that something that I forgot to mention is that DeFi, Olympus in specific, but also DeFi, is meant to give people who do not have opportunities to participate in the traditional financial markets, it gives them the opportunity to do so. And I think that's really what we're gunning for. We want people who maybe are unbanked, who couldn't get a loan from a bank, maybe because of some mistake or something happened in their past, and now their credit score is wrecked, right? And they might be great and awesome lenders, but they're they just can't get access to those innovations. We want to be able to help people get ahead in life, stay away from traditional banking systems who don't benefit them, and help them educate them in a smart way, how to integrate with DeFi and move forward with the crypto future. So that's, if I was just going to sum it up, we just want to be everywhere in the future. That's the goal.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, and then that kind of speaks to an early thought process that I'd had when first joining with Olympus, was that how do we make this something that is everywhere? How do we speak to what Shreddy just said? How do we have retail adoption? How do we take DeFi out of the shadows? That was something that to me was like a screaming issue when I first started. It was like, how do we make this a household thing? Like that is a huge, and I'm speaking to the space as a whole, not just Olympus. It's like, how do we bring this out of the shadows and make it something that's normal? And we give the power back to the people, away from banks and these other institutions that are causing a lot of heartache in our lives. And that to me is and will be an issue that needs to be on the forefront of DeFi and crypto in general. And you do that, one way of doing that, and I'm not going to say this is the only way, there's multiple avenues to make this work. But one of the important ones is really working on education and educating people. And I don't want to say dumbing down, but simplifying is the best way to put it. And making sure that your messaging is clear and concise. Now, that speaks to DeFi in a whole. There's a trillion different projects. The waters are muddy, and there's a lot of distillation that needs to take place, right? There needs to be key players and key positions that are taking care of key roles, and those roles need to be boosted, and they need to come outside of the static, and they need to be on the forefront. Now that's happening. You see that natural evolution of a project. When there's utility or the project itself, it has value to the masses, it steps ahead. That's why Walmart's have shut down many little small mom and pop shops. They're bigger, louder, and they take care of more people. Now, I'm not saying that we want to be Walmart. I'm not saying Walmart's a great thing by any means, but there's parallels that can be drawn there. So education is huge. How do you communicate something that is such a steep curve or such a deep filter to have to get through to the masses? And how do you have that become adopted? And that comes out completely from education and forward messaging, outward facing messaging. And that takes the minds of many individuals. I myself, Fattybagz, can't speak for an entire population of how something should be communicated. But if I surround myself with individuals who are intelligent and have different perspectives, they're able to look at it and go, hey, you're missing this point. Or, hey, you've been in this space too long, dude, and this shit's too easy for you. But Joe Schmo over here doesn't even know what the fuck liquidity is. So you need to step it back a bit. So there's those considerations have to be taken. And that's something I think that we overlook as individuals in this space is it's a very small bubble, but it feels like the whole world is revolving around what we're doing. Yeah. And it's easy to get lost in that. Like in my opinion, it's very easy to get lost in that and just assume that people are on the same level as you or I might be on. And that's a pitfall for a lot of people, especially from marketing sides and from educational sides of DAOs and in general in the space, is that we have to be considerate of the grandma who wants to get into crypto that saw an ad on Facebook. But we also have to be considerate of the Shreddies and the Humpties in crypto who have giant, rigid canyon brains and understand everything like they're just reading out of a book. So looking at those demographics and how we portray and how we voice that communication, I think is key to how we involve communities and how we keep communities educated, engaged. And then on top of that, how you build them and continue to build them and gain these followings of really dedicated and loyal and lovely people.
That's a wrap. I truly hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you'd like to learn more about Olympus DAO, go to olympusdao.finance and on Twitter at Olympus DAO. Thanks for listening to Crypto Sapiens. Please give us a follow, like, and a 5-star review wherever you enjoy your podcast. And stay tuned for our next discussion.